Woohoo! Hi, everybody. I'm a ballot, and I'm about to be cast for
Distance learning.
I forgot that I was wearing a green hat in front of a green screen. And now I don't have a head. It's like, that's squirrel. Blah! Anyway, I was wearing it because we're talking about color. So I was trying to have like nice bright colors, but we have to go for the orange rather than the green. So we're going to go through color theory a little bit, talk about some stuff you need to know. I am then going to talk a little bit about color spaces, the idea of being in gamut and out of gamut, the way that we convert out of gamut colors to be in gamut. And then I'll talk a little bit about sRGB and Adobe RGB 1998 and ProPhoto and their relative sizes. I know that because I've already recorded that and I'm re-recording this because it took too long. So color. Here we go. Fucking color, fucking slideshow about it. Color theory. We're not really going to get into color theory that much, but there are some really important key concepts that you need to know, and you need to know them because I'm going to quiz you about them. They're also important so that you have a language that you can talk to other people when they are talking about color. You know what the fuck they're talking about. So super basic stuff. You will get much more color in other classes. Then you can come back here and teach me because I don't know anything about color. I mean, look at this. The fuck. Okay, also, if you're watching this, you're watching it after the election. I'm recording it before the election. If society has collapsed, you can just skip the video. If society hasn't collapsed, homework's due next week. Basic concepts, additive color and subtractive color. Both of them, additive color is sort of how we talk about color when we're using light. Subtractive color is how we talk about color when we're using ink or paint or any other stuff that goes on paper, canvas, whatever. Anytime it's light, it's additive color. See, fucking it up already. All this is in a handout. This is in the drive, and I'll send you a link to it. Or you can find it yourself. I don't need to send you a link. Here we go. Additive color, right? Green, red, blue, add it all together, you get white. If you take a magnifying glass and look at the screen of your laptop, you will see in any area that is white or light gray, little teeny tiny red, green, and blue like LED things. So I think they're LEDs. LCDs? LEDs? I don't know. Doesn't matter. That is additive color. Add it up, get white, period. Subtractive color is ink, paint, all that stuff. With subtractive color, you add it all up and you get black, right? Which means if you subtract it all away, you get white. So white supremacy, it's all about, the naming system is all about how you get to whiteness, right? Like, God. So additive color gets to white, subtractive color, subtract all that paint off your canvas, you all that ink off of your print, and you end up with the white paper underneath. So two concepts, super important: additive color, subtractive color. Know which is which and where you use them. Another important concept is when we're talking about light, talking about color, talking about hue, saturation, and then what, depending on your software program, gets called value, luminance, or brightness. So right now I'm talking about value. If you're a painter, right, you've gone through so much more of this stuff because painters have to know how to make colors out of other colors. We don't really have to know that. We have to know how to talk about colors that are on things that are in our pictures, right? We're not like mixing our hat and our shirt together to get a third color and that will be our cardigan. So painters, bear with me. Complementary colors, right? This is a color wheel. Complementary colors are on opposite sides of the color wheel. That's it, period, done. They are sort of as far away from each other as you can get. Red and cyan, blue and yellow, this color and that color. That's all it means. Complementary color. They're quote unquote opposites just because they're on the other side of the color wheel. Pretty straightforward. Primary colors, right? Primary colors are equidistant, right? Red, blue, and green right there. Cyan, magenta, and yellow. Those are the subtractive ones. Red, green, and blue are the additive ones. They are the colors that we mix together to get all of the other colors. If you were a little kid and they told you it was red, green, and blue, they told you that it was red, green, and yellow, you were lied to. Miss Anderson lied. Your whole life is what is reality? Truth is lies, lies are truth, up is down, black is white, abandoned ship. Whoa, sideways is topward. The reason that they told you that red, green, and blue were the primary colors of mixing paint together is because cyan and magenta are big, scary words that are hard to spell. So, yeah, paint, it's not red, green, and blue. Don't write down that it is red, green, and blue. You will get that question wrong. We're dealing with light, right? Because our cameras are made of light. When we deal with prints, it's cyan, magenta, and yellow. Anyone who has an inkjet printer knows that, right? You've sort of popped open those things and seen those ink cartridges, and it's CMY plus K, which is black. So primary colors, there you go. So what are secondary colors? Secondary colors are what you get when you mix two primary colors. Makes sense, right? Not too weird. So if I mix red and I mix blue with that red, I get magenta, right? So primary over there, halfway between, magenta, boom, we're done. Primary colors, mix two of them, the secondary color, it's halfway between them. Super basic. Now you may be saying to yourself, Brad, if I mix red and blue, I don't get magenta. That's rocket ship. Well, buckle up, buttercup. Here is a sulfur pin to make some pictures, and this there in the middle, that is a stripe of what color? That's right, it is magenta. We don't mix light that often, and so I don't think we are as sort of reflexively aware of what light colors we create when we mix them together. But it's true, right? Mix two primaries, get a secondary. You don't believe me? Tough shit, because I'm the one that's grading your test. If you mix a secondary and a primary, you get a tertiary, right? So that's like, there's that secondary magenta, there's that primary red, we mix it together, we get a tertiary, which is one there in the middle. Does that matter? I don't think you need to know that. But it's true, right? So you might as well know it. Put it in your brain. What are you going to do with it? Who knows? Okay, here's some important stuff. So we talked about hue, saturation, and hue, or brightness, or luminance, or however your particular thing happens to talk about it. There is that color wheel again. Hue is the color that things are, right? So, right, this has a hue, that hue is orange. This has a hue is purpley purple. This is like blue over here. So if I change the hue, I'm changing what the color is, right? Again, there's probably a more intelligent way to talk about it, but you've got me. So here we have a screenshot from Photoshop. Let me zoom in there a little bit. And there is a hue slider. We can do that also in Lightroom. You can look at it in the edit thing. I'll talk a little bit about it briefly in this video. But basically, I shift the hue, and what that means is that my color wheel rotates, right? So the most I can shift 180 degrees one way or 180 degrees the other way. New version of Lightroom changes how they do color editing. You may be able to do something that's a little bit more similar to what we're doing here in Photoshop. If not, in the existing version of Lightroom that I know at least most of us have, you can make shifts in hue, but not as big. So you can shift the reds one way or another. So you might be able to shift from primary into a tertiary, maybe into a secondary color. You're not going to be able to actually shift from one primary to another. So this one is adjusted 180 degrees, right? You take that wheel, spin it 180 degrees, right? Red goes from being on the top to being on the bottom, right? So now everything that was red is now cyan. And if I look, say, here at my red brick wall, it is now a cyan brick wall. These jeans, they had been blue, right? Blue was over here on the color wheel. 180 degrees, now it's over. So if my jeans were sort of bluish over there, they're sort of more yellowy orange, and poof, there we go. We got some yellowy orange jeans right there. So that's what hue is, right? You adjust it, the color wheel changes, one color is now mapped onto another color. All right, doing the whole thing all at once. So whoa, there's some twisting. You're doing the whole thing all at once, so you are adjusting all of the colors. In Lightroom, we're making smaller hue shifts within individual color ranges. So that's hue. That's probably the most important one. Saturation, we talked about a little bit in the editing video. That's sort of how intense the color is. Zero saturation is totally black and white. 100% saturation is the most intense color you can get. Here we have that original again, and here it is with the saturation brought way down. And you can see things are less colorful, more drab, more black and white. Right, so there's still, the tonal range is there, the lightness, the darkness is still there. The color's just less intense, right? I look at the tree, that's still super dark. I look at this wall back there, that's still fairly light. Look at this name tag, that's still almost white, but dialed way down. That's saturation. And then lastly, value, brightness, or luminance. This is sort of how bright something is. We make it go up. We're basically adding white to everything. We make it go down. We're basically adding black to everything. So if I look at this, right, those shadowy trees, right, yes, but they have also brightness or luminance or value, right, whichever term you want to use. So instead of, if we look at the desaturated one, where they still stayed as black as they were before, over here in the, so there's another fucking term. They're all super white. It's like we're looking sort of through a scrim of whiteness, which is my new album. So yeah, those are the three big things in how we adjust color. Knowing how to adjust color is super important. That you absolutely do need to know. Knowing the terms for color, additive color, subtractive color, complementary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, those things are important so that you can talk to other people about color. But for us in adjusting color, hue, saturation, and lightness, brightness, value, luminosity, whatever the fuck it is, those are more important day-to-day terms because they're the things that we actually end up adjusting. Right, so here's something, right, where we have colors that are nearly complementary. Because they're nearly complementary, they feel sort of more opposite. This is a Sandy Skoglund picture, right? These very orange fish, this very sort of like bluey, cyany background, right? Here we have things where they are fairly low saturation, fairly, maybe, I don't know, high lightness, right? That yellow pops a little bit more, and they are not adjacent colors on the color wheel. They're not totally complementary, but they're sort of more opposite than not. Right? They stand out apart from each other. Each one has individual presence in the picture in a way that they wouldn't if, say, this was like a red background and then this like salmon colored stuff, or if this was a light green shoe on that yellow background, right? The closer the colors are, the less differentiated they feel in the shot, right? Doesn't mean you have to do everything way, right? Here is a photograph where almost everything is the same color, right? The model's skin and whatever this thing is up here, basically the only things that are not this like drab, gray, bluey, cyan-y color. So you can take a picture however you want, right? But it's important to have that to talk about what's going on, and it's important to know how colors will feel different or connected. So that's the magic of color theory. We'll now jump on to talk a little bit about color spaces, in gamut, out of gamut, transitioning between one color space and another. So yeah.